Zoroark is one of my favorite decks of all time, and recently it's been struggling. Ever since rotation hit, it just hasn't, well, found its stride. It's really been struggling in the meta. A lot of the decks right now are grass decks, and even the decks that aren't grass decks, such as Lucario, Zoroark tends to struggle against. Or does it? So here is the list I've been playing recently, and it has an answer to these grass decks and also these other decks that Zoroark tends to struggle against, and that is the Mega Lopunny EX. So what does Mega Lopunny do? Well, Mega Lopunny is a stage 1 colorless Pokemon with 330 HP. That might sound like a lot, but it is a Mega Pokemon, meaning if it's knocked out, your opponent takes 3 prize cards, so high risk, high reward. And it has 2 pretty good attacks. The first one is Gale Thrust, which for 1 colorless does 60 damage. But if it's switched from the bench to the active, it does 170 more, meaning you deal 230 damage, which is a really good number to hit, as it knocks out all of these Teal Mask Ogopons, Fezandipitis, and all these other cards like that. And then it has a second attack called Spiky Hopper, and Spiky Hopper is a really good attack for one specific matchup. It's just really good against Crustle and honestly any wall deck, because it's a shred attack. It goes through any effects, right? So fighting Ogopon is no longer a problem, Crustle is no longer a problem, that Sylveon that no one plays but it does exist is no longer a problem. But there are still some fan favorite attackers in this deck, such as a 1/1 Darumaka Darmanitan line, and this is mainly included because it is just arguably the best card in the deck still. It is just such a strong card, and there is one matchup where it helps out a lot in, and that is the Lucario matchup. So the Lucario matchup is quite rough for Zoroark, but the Darmanitan really helps out. Being able to deal 90 damage to a Lucario, and then swing with Rampaging Thunder for 250 to deal the 340 needed to knock out the Lucario is just a really nice line and a great way to beat the deck. On top of that, you have Reshiram, because Reshiram is a really strong attacker, and I find myself using Reshiram more often than Zekrom nowadays. I think a lot of people disrespect Zoroark, and a lot of people aren't playing the Reshiram, so they kind of just disrespect, swing into the Zoroark, deal like 200 damage with a Phantom Dive or something, and then they go ahead and, get punished for it because, well, yeah, they weren't expecting you to bench a Reshiram and deal 400 damage back to them. And then on top of that, you do have the Zekrom, like I mentioned already. Zekrom is still really good. It's just a very good tempo attacker. It's able to deal 250 damage, and it is the only attacker that on its own can swing for these high numbers with cards like Binding Mochi, plus the Pecharunt, and also the Black Belt Training. You can deal up to 330 damage, right? It is a pretty good and a solid number to swing for, especially with a lot of these other higher HP Stage 2 decks like Dragapult and Blaziken having 310 and 320 HP. So it just gives you a good answer to those guys, because otherwise you wouldn't have a great answer to reach those numbers. But damage counters is something that is being flung around a lot in the current meta. A lot of decks are playing Munkidori, a lot of decks are playing spread damage with their own Munkidoris, Dragapult spreads damage, and also some things just swing into you and don't knock you out. So how can you take advantage of that? Well, that is the double Munkidori. And we are playing double Munkidori because of our A-spec choice. I think the double Munkidori comes up quite often, and it is a very, very strong card, especially when paired with the Mega Lopunny, which usually you will be committing your A-spec to the Hero's Cape. Obviously, this is not the most common A-spec, but if you are a viewer of the channel, you'll know that pre-rotation, this was the A-spec I was playing in my Zoroark lists back then, and it has crept its way back into my current lists right now. I think it is arguably the strongest A-spec in Zoroark, and it has won me so many games. In fact, I'll be releasing a gameplay video very shortly, and the Blaziken Dragapult matchup that I played against, without Hero's Cape, I was losing that one 100%. Hero's Cape is a very strong card. Not many decks are playing Jamming Tower, right? A lot of them are pivoting towards this Team Rocket's Watchtower, meaning Hero's Cape gets you a lot of value. It turns your Mega Lopunny into a 430 HP behemoth, swinging for like 230 damage every single turn, and you're able to heal 60 damage off of it every single turn, meaning you're essentially doing 290, right? Or you could be dealing 230 to the active, and then also 60 to the bench with Adrenabrain, meaning it's just a pretty strong Phantom Dive essentially, and it costs a single energy. So Zoroark is a good attacker, but there are some matchups where Mega Lopunny just sweeps. Since its attack cost is so low, these Teal Mask Ogopons just can't swing a lot of damage into it, right? Because they deal more damage for every energy attached. So even with Meganium in play, they still need 5 energy in play on their Ogerpon to actually one-shot your Mega Lopunny. And if you put a Hero's Cape on it, well, it's even more, right? It's 7, and they're not going to get 7 energy onto a Teal Mask Ogerpon. And even if they do, they're going to get it over multiple turns, so Mega Lopunny is going to take at least 4 prize cards before they get to that point. And then you're trading a positive 4 for 3, and Zoroark can come in the final attack and just knock out the Teal Mask Ogerpon, right? Originally, I was playing a Moltres package, but I think the Mega Lopunny just makes a lot of sense. I think it is just a great, easy attacker to set up. Sometimes it's just easier to get the Mega Lopunny set up instead of chaining back-to-back-to-back Zoroarks, which, you know, can be difficult, as this can just attack for a single energy, right? And that one energy attachment is so much easier to find than having to find energy plus Ends PP up plus the relevant attacker that you actually need in the current situation. So it is just a low agency attacker that does good damage, right? On top of that, since we are not running the Unfair Stamp, we do still want some kind of disruption, and right now I'm going for a 1-1 split of Judge and Xerosic. The Judge is quite good against a lot of decks towards the later stages of the game because it's just a pretty decent card, right? Since there's not a lot of disruption in the format, you can let your opponent draw a bunch of cards, and then when you are going for a big swing knockout, then you go for the Judge, right? And then against something like the Alexam, which I would say is not the greatest matchup, but Hero's Cape does help out a lot with that. Xerosic is really good because it puts them down to 3 cards, and then if you have a 430 HP Mega Lopunny, there's no way they're ever going to one-shot that, right? And even if they do come close, you'll have Munkidoris to heal it by quite a bit, probably taking a knockout on something on the bench, and then from there, you can just take another knockout with Spiky Hopper, right? So it is just really good. I would still say that Darmanitan gives me the most value out of any attacker, because a lot of people just don't want to KO the Darmanitan. They would rather be swinging into a Zoroark, or trying to take some Munkidoris off the board, right? Since there's no counter catcher anymore, you're limited to how many gusts you can play. And if you're using your boss's orders for turn and you're gusting the Darmanitan, right, it just doesn't feel good. Because a lot of the times when the Darmanitan is evolved, it's already done its job. It's probably attacked once, and that's all you really need it for. And sometimes people just don't have the option to take out the Darmanitan because you were able to attack before they were even able to evolve. Meaning you just took 2 prizes on something like 2 Cloaks before they were even able to get into a Phantom Dive and actually gust knock out your Darmanitan. Then we do still have the Pecharunt, because Pecharunt really does tie in very well with the Mega Lopunny. When you put the Ends Castle in play, it essentially gives you free pivot into the Mega Lopunny, so you can continue Gale Thrusting every single turn, because you can put Ends Castle in play, use your Pecharunt to switch in a Zoroark, switch in a Zorua, whatever, and then free retreat into your Mega Lopunny, and there you go, your Gale Thrust is reset and dealing 230 damage again. As for the supporter line, we have a pretty thick 4 Lillie, 3 Boss, and 3 Cyrano. That's because these are the supporters you're using most games, right? Lillie is just good whenever you see it, right? The more Lilies you see, the more cards you're seeing, and the more setup you'll probably be. The boss's orders are just really strong because this is a deck that really wants to go for a 2-2-2 prize map, and it ties in really well with the Mega Lopunny and the Darmanitan as well, right? A lot of the times your opponent will have a bigger EX in the active, and you kind of don't want to swing into that, so you can boss's orders around that, and then use Flame Body Cannon to deal with 2 smaller Pokemon on the bench. Then Cyrano, although we play 3 of them, usually we only use 1 of them, but when we do see the one, it is really important because it's able to find 3 EXs, and usually it's finding something like 2 Zoroarks and the Mega Lopunny, right? So it just means you have a lot of ways to actually find these EXs. You have the 3 Cyrano and also the 3 Ultra Ball, and obviously you have the EXs themselves. So it is just a nice, addition. Then we have Black Belt's Training, which, like we've mentioned, is just a nice damage amplifier, and it also lets you get to some pretty cool little numbers with the Gale Thrust, with the Night Joker Rampaging Thunder, and then also with the Flame Body Cannon, because if your opponent has a Latias in play, right, they're probably never attacking with Latias, but let's be real, if there is a Latias inactive, well, then you can go Black Belt's Training, Flame Body Cannon, knock out the Latias, and also knock out something on the bench, taking about 3 prize cards. And then on top of that, we have the Judge and Xerosic, which we have already gone through. I did see a version of this list circulating around on Twitter earlier, but I didn't really like it because it wasn't playing a lot of Poké Pads and Ultra Balls. I think the whole problem with Zoroark is that it really struggles to set up. Zoroark is a great deck, but it struggles to set up. And if you are able to set up, your deck just becomes so much more functional than before. the 4 Poké Pads is just a great inclusion. It's able to find the Zoruas, it's able to find the evolutions like Darmanitans, it's able to mid-game find your actual attackers, and then you have your 4 Buddy-Buddy Poffins. Obviously, you don't usually play 4 Buddy-Buddy Poffins in a single game. In fact, you usually only play 1, but then they are really easy to discard with trade. And the Ultra Balls, Ultra Ball is just a great card to find your Zoroarks, to find your basics if you really need to, and a lot of the times, you will only have an Ultra Ball in your opening hand because Pokemon is just like that. Then we have 3 NSPP up. I could definitely see this being cut to 2, because usually you only use 2, but the 3 is just there for consistency reasons. Item lock is no longer as big as a factor in the game right now. A lot of Dragapults are cutting down to a singular Badoo, so you don't have to worry about the energy like NSPP up too much, because, you're probably going to be able to use items fairly fast, especially when they are swinging into you dealing 20 damage with the Badoo. Then you can just Munkidori that damage back and just like scratch them or something and just KO them on the spot, right? And then they usually won't go back into another Badoo because they don't want to waste a Night Stretcher for a Badoo, because you're probably going to be doing the exact same play in the next turn. And on top of that, just any deck that plays Munkidori, Badoo is just, not great into, because it's a very free price card. So it is just a nice little answer, and also, like I said, just consistency reasons. 2 Night Stretcher feels okay. Sometimes I wouldn't have minded like a 3rd, because we are playing very thin actual attacker lines, but the thing is that since we are playing these lower 1-1 splits of attackers, literally 1-1-1-1 splits, because we have 1 Darumaka, 1 Darmanitan, 1 Reshiram, and 1 Zekrom, we are also playing the Mega Lopunny. We are playing a 2-1 line, because in some matchups you really do want to set up the Mega Lopunny, so if you were playing a 1-1 line and you benched the Buneary, all they would have to do is boss's orders and KO this Buneary, and then all of a sudden your Megalo Pony is just useless. So you can bench them at the same time, you can Poffin both Bunearys, and then obviously you're not going to use both of them or evolve both of them, but it just guarantees you a safe way to actually get into the Megalo Pony without it just dying. As for the stadiums, we have 2 Ents Castle, because like I said, it ties in really well with the Gale Thrust attack, and then 1 Team Rocket's Watchtower. We don't play a Meowth in this deck, as you might see. We also don't have any colorless abilities, so Team Rocket's Watchtower is really good against these decks that do rely on Meowth, like Slopbox and Kangaskhan, and then also against the Alakazam. 7 energy is fine. I haven't had too many issues with the energy, because like I've said, you are able to accelerate it quite efficiently with the NSPP up mid-game, and then obviously you do have attackers that only need 1 energy anyway, which, is the Mega Lopunny. Pecharunt doesn't really attack because I'm not playing Energy Switch, but I will be updating my Zoroark guide to match this list, and then I will be going over potential techs, which there are a lot of. Zoroark is a very unsolved deck, in my opinion, so lots of techs, lots of options, lots of like ace spec options. You can be playing on Fair Stamp, Heroescape, Super Scoop Up, or Scoop Up Cyclone. There's a lot of different ace specs that this deck could play. But for now, that is that from me. If you guys want to see more content, smash like, smash subscribe, and catch me live. I stream, I'll try and stream every day moving forward. So yeah, if you guys enjoy me yapping, well then you better be there for the streams.